Today's video starts off with something a little different. Observe. Welcome to a more psychedelic synthwave version of the Crew Motorfest. This is actually both a teaser and a callback. You may remember in episode 7 of Motorfest Legacy that we did a retro-inspired outrun race, and that at the end of the race, I talked about us doing it again sometime in the future. Well, would you know it? Madeline has given me the green light to run Motorfest Arcade, a 26-episode mini-series that will begin in the fall and is to run alongside her Dangerous Hunts mini-series. Though to make it even better, we decided to put on a few additional stylistic changes, as you can clearly see. From a production standpoint, the effects can be a bit difficult to maintain, so now that you've seen a preview, let us return to our regularly composited broadcast. That's better. Now, some of you may be wondering how we managed to do something like that in Premiere, and to be quite honest, Madeline had never done anything like this prior to starting the project, meaning she had two options: spend hours browsing the internet for applicable tutorials, or ask Gemini to create a custom tutorial specifically for this project. You can pretty much guess which choice Madeline made. There is an age-old saying that those who can do and those who can't teach. Whereas AI tends to be criticized for fast-tracking the production of assets in the style of many popular artists, those same artists may be surprised to learn that it isn't a simple copy-paste job, and that the AI actually understands the design process on some fundamental level. Which is what we are here to talk about today. Buckle up, because this is going to be a fun one. Initially, Madeline began this project by asking Gemini for ways to do dynamic color grading in the style of a synthwave aesthetic. Gemini gave Madeline a few options, from the use of solid color layers with blend modes, to the use of a color balance and saturation adjustment layer. While these options were simpler, they did not provide the dynamic result Madeline was looking for. That's when she noticed Premiere Elements has a function known as three-way color corrector. Gemini then provided an entire tutorial on how to apply this tool in order to dynamically adjust highlights, midtones, and shadows according to a range of contrasting tints. Gemini even went as far as to suggest which colors might provide the best effects, with pinks and yellows for the highlights, then deep blues and purples for the midtones, and then deeper pinks and lighter cyans for the shadows. This ended up being mostly consistent with the final selection by Madeline. In Madeline's selection, highlights features more green than yellow. Midtones were relatively the same as recommended, and shadows were more purple than pink, with the cyan as the secondary modifier. To further refine the effect, the adjustment layer was modified with increased saturation, and then the effect stack was further modified as a color blend in order to merge with the original video layer. The end result is a dynamic synthwave color scheme that actually changes based on time of day. Daytime video has more of a yellow sky, while nighttime video has more of a purple sky. And of course, the finishing touches were to apply a posterization effect to the main video, as well as adding a progressive scan overlay to the viewing window. The result is an authentic 80s-inspired video game experience. Madeline certainly did a phenomenal job with it. While we are at it, let us touch upon the Motorfest Arcade logo, seeing as that required a separate tutorial all its own. Madeline began by showing Gemini an image of the Crew flashback title card from the Crew 2, explaining that she wanted to make a similar effect and apply it to the current Motorfest logo. Gemini explained that Madeline could spell out the word Motorfest on a text layer, duplicate that layer half a dozen times, change the colors, and nudge them over one by one in order to create a 3D text effect. This effect could be further amplified by applying a bevel to the topmost layer. It took a couple of hours to get everything just right, but it would seem that the finished design speaks for itself. That makes it another aspect which Madeline should be quite proud of having created with her own hands. Only, with all of this being said, there is actually one small problem. There are those within the art community who would absolutely balk at the notion of AI being used for creating tutorials such as these. Some of the detractors would go as far as to say that, given AI was trained on existing tutorials, this is somehow a theft of those educational efforts. Even if many of those tutorials are more generic and are more often free to access, you will have artists who believe that Madeline should still have turned to those references rather than having an AI piece together a range of possible steps for completing this particular project. And to that I say, y'all be pushing the goalposts in a major way. People need to come to the understanding that within art, the idea of freeform simply does not exist as y'all think it does. For every pigment that is put to paper, even in the physical world, the foundation of that process is imbued with the nature of mathematics. We recognize objects based upon their attributes. This includes their lines, their colors, their orientations. All of these things are based upon mathematics in some way. Every line has a corresponding equation, even if you know not what that equation is. Every color is a frequency of light being reflected off of a surface. Every orientation is measurable in degrees. There is no form of art that is not touched by mathematics in some way. Therefore, it shouldn't be any wonder that a computer program, which humans use to create art, is able to be interpreted by a computer program that is, for example, a large language model. Because computers, quite obviously, are math. Everything you have seen within this video has been the result of different attributes being applied to different objects in a virtual space. A program like Photoshop or Premiere stores those attributes as mathematical formulas, even if the user has no idea that such formulas exist. If you've ever wondered why a Photoshop document can be up to 50 megabytes in size when its corresponding PNG is only 5 megabytes in size, this is exactly why that is. The erroneous belief artists have that AI is simply copying and pasting the work of other artists is exactly that, erroneous. A computer doesn't need to copy and paste art when it can simply recite the formulas for the line work, the hex codes for the colors, and the orientations of objects relative to each other on a digital page. It would be no different than accusing an author of plagiarism simply because they have access to the English dictionary. But all of those things notwithstanding, the bottom line is that Madeline did use her own hands to open up Photoshop and Premiere and to manipulate these objects and effects in order to create the outcome she desired. This is no different than if any other digital artist had done so. She can't be accused of using AI when every step was carried out by her. Yet to argue that it is somehow still AI because an AI instructed her how to do those things with her own hands is its own level of contorted logic, which I have no doubt would make Madeline herself jealous. You know, since she used to be a contortionist, okay, yeah, that one was dumb. The issue at hand is that no matter how much potential AI has to optimize and expedite a person's creative process, it will always be vilified by somebody else because computers are bad or something, ignoring the fact that computers are the only reason a lot of these artists can create at all. Even putting something like video work aside, because that is low-hanging fruit, when you look at a program like Adobe Photoshop or one of its many clones, what this program brings to the table are essential functionalities like layering, blending, a full range of typographies, custom brushes, every color pigment known to mankind, 3D effects, and even animation. Adobe is the industry standard for a reason. And when you get down to the very foundations of what makes a program like Photoshop work, it is no different than what is making all of these AI models work. Everything comes down to mathematics, plain and simple. I think I have said all I can on the subject. Sometimes it is nice to just get out there and voice your thoughts into the void, even if my thoughts are just a branch of Madeline's own fragmented mind. Though that's neither here nor there. If you stayed to the end, be sure to leave a like, maybe comment, and we will be seeing you in a future video.